Hey, what's up, guys? So there's a lot of 4K dash cams that are available in the market, but it turns out not all of the ones that are advertised as 4K actually record at 4K. In fact, there's quite a few fake 4K dash cams that are using lower end hardware and lower resolution sensors that are physically incapable of recording in 4K. And then through some, shall we say, questionable marketing tactics, uh, they're advertising the dash cams as if they do record in 4K, and that's very misleading because if you're getting a 4K dash cam, you want one that can really maximize the captured video quality to record faces and license plates and small details like that when you're out on the road. And so in this video, I want to go over exactly what the differences are between a real 4K dash cam and a fake 4K dash cam, as well as what you can look for when you're looking at different 4K dash cams online, so that if you want to invest in a 4K dash cam, you get one that actually does record in 4K. So starting off, what does 4K even mean in the first place? Well, the 4 in the 4K basically has to do with the resolution of the image, specifically the horizontal resolution being about 4,000 pixels wide. And so with dash cams, that's going to translate to something that's recording at 3840 by 2160, or again, roughly 4,000 pixels wide. There are a couple other standard formats as well, but they're all, again, going to be around 4,000 pixels wide. And then if you take a look at what that translates to, that's basically going to be an image, this whole red space here, this is 4K. There's a lot more resolution that's being used compared to something like this green image, which is just full HD or 1080p. So a lot more pixels basically being used to capture important detail. And so next, if we take a look at a couple real 4K dash cams, here's what that's going to look like. Here's the Blackview DR900X Plus. This is a real 4K dash cam, and you'll notice that it records, they say, at 3840 by 2160. Awesome. And at 30 FPS. That's also very important. Now, the key thing is that it's doing this by using an 8 megapixel sensor. This is actually going to be really, really important. If we take a look at another dash cam, here is the Thinkware U1000. It's a 4K dash cam, records at 3840 by 2160. And you'll notice it says right here, so 4K Ultra HD at 30 FPS. And again, in order to achieve it, they use an 8.42 megapixel sensor, so 8 megapixel sensor. There's also the VFO A129 Pro, another popular 4K dash cam, and again, records 3840 by 2160, and they specify that they're doing it using an 8 megapixel sensor. If you take a look actually a little bit more detail, you can see it records 30 FPS, and they also actually specify which sensor it is. It's an 8 megapixel Sony IMX317 sensor. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the specs for that sensor, here's the IMX317. Right, so there's the sensor, and as you can see right here, it's an 8.51 megapixel sensor, so 8 megapixels. And if you take a look at the resolutions that the sensor is capable of, you can see it's got almost 4,000 pixels wide and about 2,200 pixels tall. So the recommended recording pixels that you're going to use are 3840 by 2160. That's actually what they recommend to use here for this sensor. Next, let's go ahead and contrast that with a couple different fake 4K dash cams so you can see the difference. First, we'll start with the Rexing V1. As you can see right here, they'll say it's a 4K dash cam. But then if you start looking a little bit closer, they don't tell you the actual resolution. They don't tell you the frame rate. They do say 2160p, the vertical resolution, but not the horizontal resolution. And so to do a little bit more digging, if we head over here to Rexing's website for the V1, specifically for their 4K version, and we scroll down to find the specs, you'll notice that down here under video resolution, it says that it's only recording at 2880 by 2160p and at 24 FPS. Two issues here. This is not 4,000 pixels wide. It's about 3,000 pixels wide. It's also not 30 FPS. It's only 24 FPS. And if you take a look at the image sensor that they're using, it's the OmniVision OV4689. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at some detailed information here for this sensor, here's the OV4689. It's not an 8 megapixel sensor. It's only a 4 megapixel sensor. And if you take a look at what a 4 megapixel sensor is capable of, here's the actual resolution of the sensor itself, 2688 by 1560. So it's not 4,000 pixels wide, and it's not 2160 tall. So I know that's a lot of numbers, so real quick to give you a visual, this whole white area that you can see on screen, this is an 8 megapixel sensor that's recording in 4K. Now, this black area is the 2880 by 2160. This is the resolution that Rexing V1 4K is advertising that it's putting out. So as you can see, same vertical resolution, but not the same horizontal resolution. Now, what's interesting, though, is if you take a look at the sensor itself, which is kind of displayed here in red, this is the resolution of the sensor itself. As you can see, it's not physically able to give you the horizontal resolution of that black area, or even the vertical area. It's basically giving you a smaller, lower resolution resolution area, and it's having to stretch the image and make it larger to fit and take up the entire quote-unquote 4K resolution. Now, you can take a low-resolution video and stretch it as big as you want, but that's not going to magically add any additional detail or quality or resolution if it wasn't being captured in the first place. And so for that reason, 4 megapixel sensors are typically used for 2K or 2.5K dash cams. That's the resolution that you'll see here displayed in yellow, and it's very, very close to what you've got with the red 4 megapixel sensor. And so 4 megapixel sensors are usually used for 2K or 2.5K dash cams, not for 4K because they're physically incapable of capturing and thus recording at 4K. Next, we'll take a look at another popular 4K dash cam. This is the Rove R2 4K. This is a fake 4K dash cam. Now, you'll notice that they do advertise Ultra HD 2160p, right? 4K. And again, 2160p. They make a point about that. They say it's 4K, awesome. And it even shows 4K right there on the front of the dash cam. However, if we go over here and take a look at another image, here's the different resolutions that the dash cam is capable of recording at. Take a look at the 4K one. It's, again, only 2880 by 2160p at 24 FPS. So again, we're running into the same issue here to where it's not the same 4,000 pixels wide and it's not capable of recording at 30 FPS. Now this dash cam, as you can see, they mentioned it uses the Sony IMX335 as its image sensor. And so if we take a closer look here at the Sony IMX335, this sensor physically only has 5 million pixels or 5 megapixels. And if you take a look at what that translates to in terms of resolution, well, 2,700 pixels physically wide and about 2,100 tall. And the recommended resolution, they say, 2592 by 1944, which is, again, much lower than the full 4K resolution that's going to be 4,000 pixels wide. Now, I bought a Rove R2 4K to do a little bit of testing with it, and the video quality with it, it's not bad. I mean, it's going to be comparable to what you'll get with a 2K or a 2.5K dash cam because those are actually pretty decent dash cams, but they're not full 4K dash cams. Additionally, because it's going to be dropping down to 24 FPS, the video is going to be a little bit chunkier than something that records at 30 FPS, which again is going to be smoother. Next, I want to show you another dash cam where things get a little bit more confusing. Here's another Rexing dash cam. This is the Rexing V5. This is a 4K dash cam, and look at this. They say 3840 by 2160 at 30 FPS. Awesome. And if you take a look, they say this is actually one of their real 4K dash cams. So cool. This one actually sounds better than their previous model that we looked at, the V1 4K. However, if you take a look, they say they use the Sony IMX335. That's the same image sensor that this Rove R2 4K that we just looked at is using. And so again, the IMX335, it's a 5 megapixel sensor, and it is physically incapable of actually recording at the full 4K because, well, it just doesn't have enough pixels to actually do it. And so I know this gets a little bit confusing because it looks like it meets the resolution and the frame rate requirement. And if you, again, go take a look on their website here, again, they're actually saying right here, yep, 3840 by 2160 at 30 FPS. But if you actually look at the sensor that they're using, it's not capable of actually capturing at the full 4K. And it's for that reason that some manufacturers actually, if they're using a 5 megapixel sensor, this, for example, this is the VFO A129 Plus, they'll say it's a 1440p dash cam. It's a 2K dash cam, sometimes advertised as 2.5K, but again, it's not going to be listed as a 4K dash cam. This one right here, the VFO A129 Plus, this one actually uses a 5 megapixel IMX335 sensor. So again, 5 megapixel, not 8, and it's for that reason that they sell it as a 2K dash cam, or again, maybe 2.5K. If you want a 4K one, they also have a 4K version. Here's the A129 Pro. Again, 4K dash cam, 3840 by 2160 at 8 megapixels. And if you take a look at the video quality between the two dash cams, I mean, the A129 Plus, if you're at 2K or 2.5K, don't get me wrong, the video quality is good, but it's just not going to have the resolution and resolving capability of a true 4K dash cam. And if you're spending the money for a 4K dash cam, you should get one that's actually capable of recording in 4K, because it really does make a difference. Now, most dash cams that you're going to see around $100 are not going to be true 4K. There are a couple exceptions. One of them, for example, is the Blue Sky C 4K. It is, again, 3840 by 2160, and you'll notice it has an 8 megapixel sensor. That's really cool. So here's one. It's about $100, $115 on Amazon right now, and another $15 coupon you can use. So it drops you down to $100. They also sell a rear camera with it. If you plug it in, it drops it down to 24 FPS. I do find some weird issues with this one where you may run into playback issues getting the videos to playback smoothly. I've run into some parking mode issues getting hooked up to dashcam battery packs. And so there are some other issues with this one. But again, if you take a closer look, this is a $100 dashcam that actually does record at 4K. If you take a look at the image sensor, it's a great way to verify. Sony IMX415. Take a look at the specs for this one. Here's the 415. And again, 3840 by 2160. It is an 8 megapixel sensor. So for that reason, this one here, the Blue Sky C 4K, $100 dashcam that actually records at 4K. And so it's possible, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of fake 4K dashcams, especially around the $100 price point. Now, there's some really good additional resources that you can check out that goes into a lot more detail about this. Here's a good article on the Dashcam Talk forum, which kind of mentions this whole thing about needing, an 8 megapixel sensor. That's what you're going to need minimum. And they kind of talk about a bunch of different dash cams. Here's another article where they talk about a couple different techniques that different dash cam manufacturers use. There's actually a variety of ways to do this to fake 4K resolution. And again, maybe taking photos instead of doing proper videos or lying about the size of the sensor and stuff. So there's a bunch of different things, but this is a great resource that I'm going to link you to in the video description as well. And so, yeah, that's a quick look at the differences between a real 4K dashcam and a fake 4K dashcam. I'm finding quite a few 4K dashcams on the market that are actually fake, and so I wanted to do a quick video in addition to my tests and reviews that I post here on YouTube that kind of go into a little bit more detail specifically about this issue, because it does seem to be surprisingly common and widespread. And so again, if you're looking for a real 4K dashcam, you're going to want to have a dashcam that records with an 8 megapixel sensor that records at 3840 by 2160, no funky lower max resolutions, and records at a minimum of 30 FPS. If you're looking for a recommendation in a dashcam, whether it's 4K or not, at different price points with different features, down in the video description, I'll link you guys to my page with all my different dashcam recommendations that you can check out as well. And so, yeah, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.